All right, so hi all, and welcome to our presentation, Reigniting the Fire, Finding Greater Purpose and Motivation Through Open Education. Thank you for taking the time to view this recording. My colleague Carmen Cole and I will be talking about our experiences with burnout and how working with open education, especially OER adoption and open pedagogy, has helped us reframe our efforts and find new motivation in our careers. Although there's no live Q&A attached to this presentation, we encourage and invite you to reach out to us at our emails, which are listed on our slides and which we will read for the captions at the end of the session with any questions, comments, or perspectives that you'd like to share.
My name's Carmen Cole, and my pronouns are she, her. I'm the Information Sciences and Business Liaison Librarian at the Penn State University Park campus. University Park is the largest Penn State campus and has approximately 40,000 students and residents. I'm the sole liaison librarian to the College of Information Sciences and Technology, and I also work with the more tech-focused majors in the Smeal College of Business, like the Management Information Systems major and Business Analytics Master Program. I've held this position for 7 years, and the longevity of my tenure has made assisting faculty with open initiatives a bit simpler because of my already established relationships in the areas. And also, I feel as though I have a good sense of the needs of the students in these areas.
Perfect. And I'm Elizabeth Nelson, and my pronouns are she, her. I'm a reference and instruction librarian at Penn State's Lehigh Valley campus in southeastern PA, about an hour northwest of Philadelphia. My campus has about 900 students on average and a library staff of 5, 2 faculty librarians and 3 library staff members. My head librarian and I split our liaison work by discipline, so I provide instruction sessions primarily for humanities, IT, and business courses. Like Carmen, the relationships I've built with my faculty through instruction have opened a lot of doors for my open education work. I teach usually around 30 to 40 information literacy sessions every semester. So I also have regular contact with most of our campus's students and a large number of our faculty as well. Before we get started, we did want to share a brief content warning. This presentation does contain mentions of depression and anxiety, so please take care of yourself and prioritize your mental health if you decide to proceed or not proceed with viewing the presentation. So we also wanted to give a little background on our work with open education. I started working with open education in 2018 when I was working in a temporary position at Penn State Abington, and a student came to my office asking for help finding a textbook. Her course had assigned a single user access code textbook with a bundled homework system, and she couldn't afford to purchase the book and wasn't permitted to access or hand in her homework outside of that textbook system. She knew that she was going to fail the course and she was planning to drop it if she couldn't get the book, but she explained that that would trigger a cascade effect. Because she was in her final semester and she was ready to graduate with just this one course left, she didn't have the funds to pay tuition for another semester to take the course with a different instructor because, of course, she didn't have the funds just to buy one more book. So not only was she going to drop the class, she was going to drop out of school entirely a few months before graduation because of the cost of one textbook. So long story short, I started asking around about textbook costs, and I got looped into a project with Christina Riemann-Murphy to develop the Affordable Course Content Faculty Fellowship, which provided funding and support for faculty to adopt OER. That was a wild success, and Christina and I, along with Brian McGeary, expanded it and have now run it for 2 years as the OER Leads program, which trains librarians to support OER adoptions and then provides funding for them to support faculty OER adoptions at their campuses. I support OER adoption at my campus through OER Leads as well, but I also work with faculty on open pedagogy projects. I co-facilitate an annual open and affordable showcase event for faculty, professional development with my head librarian, Jen Jarson, and I've been the lead on grant-funded OER authorship projects as well. I'm also the co-chair of Affordable Learning PA's Education and Training Working Group, which supports open and educational work throughout Pennsylvania, and I co-facilitate a training course for faculty interested in learning more about OER through that organization. Carmen?
So kind of building off of Elizabeth's experiences, I participated in the second cohort of the OER Leads program that Elizabeth mentioned above, and was able to work with 5 faculty members to adopt open and library provided materials for their courses. So this opportunity definitely deepened my collaborative relationships with the faculty in my liaison area. And as a result of this work, so using the formula suggested by the OER Leads organizers, we achieved an estimated 5,000 $560 in savings for students enrolled in these courses. And also because of my promotion of the OER Leads program, another faculty member asked me to help select open and library provided materials for their newly developed high enrollment course. The course is entitled Emerging Technologies in Popular Culture and has an enrollment of 329 students. So the estimated total savings for those students was $12,502. We could have the next slide. So I achieved tenure in March of 2022, and the tenure process generally takes 6 years. Additionally, I completed a 3-year appointment as the Sally W. Kalin Learning Innovations Librarian, which is an early career endowed professorship. In this position, so I held the endowed position while also holding my current position and perform the tasks of my main appointment alongside the tasks for my endowed position. And like many liaison librarians, I perform instruction, research consultations, collection development, and outreach. Also, faculty librarians on promotion tracks are expected to engage in research in service. Using funds from the endowment, I developed and led a series of web programming workshops for women and gender nonconforming individuals for 2 years. This was an enormous undertaking, and I was generally working 60+ hour weeks. I worked my normal job and then spent about 6 hours a week on the workshops. Additionally, I needed time to work with our graduate student, intern, and part-time staff member to develop and maintain our learning materials, website, marketing, etc. So needless to say, by the time I was granted tenure, finished the endowed position, and navigated the transition to online learning in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, I was exhausted. I also didn't know what I wanted to do next. I'm the type of person that needs a big project in order to feel really invigorated in my work. So this lack of uncertainty caused me to have a period of depression and anxiety that was affecting my day-to-day work. And while I still enjoyed helping students and faculty in my liaison areas, an underlying sense of apathy existed for me. I felt like it was difficult to determine whether or not I was having an impact after years of collecting data for my dossier and seeing those aha moments in the web development workshops. I felt as though I didn't have anything to work towards, and that feeling of stagnation really affected me. I thought to myself, besides what I already do in my day-to-day work, what is my next passion project? I knew something had to change, and after being inspired by 3 of my colleagues, I dove into the deep end of open work.
Yeah, and my experience with burnout shares some similarities, but has some differences from Carmen's as well. For me, I'm still on the tenure track. I'm hopefully handing in my dossier in summer 2024, but the endless, sometimes tedious pieces of the tenure process certainly contribute to my burnout. I often feel frustrated that I have to take time away from the work that I find meaningful, impactful, and enjoyable to document that work for others via structures that are sometimes both standardized and vague. But I find I use OER really to combat my burnout with social inequities in general. I've struggled with anxiety and depression for most of my life without a lot of help or treatment. And watching what feels like the collapse of empires in real time happening over the past handful of years has not helped with that. There are so many things wrong with the world, but many of which I don't know anything about, and I don't have the capacity to learn deeply enough about to contribute significantly to changing. But one thing I do know a lot about is higher education. I know a lot about course materials. I know a lot about open education, and I have a front row seat to the internal contradictions happening within higher ed. It's really disheartening to watch students pile on lifelong debt to pursue careers, sometimes meaningful society-serving careers that are going to benefit everyone, but they're still weighed down by this. It's demotivating to watch good teachers struggle with unsustainable workloads and stagnant salaries, some of which are turning into pay cuts from inflation, or teachers with adjunct contracts that come with low pay, uncertain renewals, lack of physical resources, lack of training and support. It's frustrating to recognize the disparity in compensation too between administration, faculty, and staff, and yet never have enough administrative resources to provide desperately needed support and to have to function on like a shoestring budget and skeleton staff while that funding drains off elsewhere. And I know these are issues that are happening at, higher ed institutions around the country, around the world. It's also terrifying within the US to watch the breakdown in American K-12 education and see just how many of our incoming first-year students are being admitted to college-level education with college-level debt attached to their immediate success or failure, and then struggle to function at even a high school level. So open education is one of the few things that I feel like I have the expertise in, I have the context, and I have the opportunity to support in a way that helps to address at least some of these inequities. So that's kind of become the framework that I've built the rest of my career around.
So for me, working on open education has helped to restore the enthusiasm I previously had for my work. The principles of open education, such as equitable access to learning materials, higher education affordability, and the free exchange of knowledge without costly barriers, are deeply rooted in my librarianship, and a main part of the reason I developed the web programming workshops for those that are historically underrepresented in the computing fields. The principles of open work are natural alignment with my already well-established beliefs. And as I learned more about some of the open initiatives that 3 of my colleagues, including Elizabeth, were engaged in, the more I thought diving into more open work was a good fit. I have been fortunate enough to subsequently participate in several professional development training opportunities to advance my knowledge of open work. In spring of 2003, I began my participation in the previously mentioned OER Leads program here at Penn State. I also earned my Open Education Network certificate in OER librarianship, completed the Creative Commons certificate program, and participated in the pilot of Spark's Foundations in Advocacy course. The Spark course focused on advocating for the elimination of inclusive access programs by replacing that means of accessing materials with OER. As a part of the Open Education Network certificate, I completed an in-depth action plan to develop an OER program targeting specifically to the College of Information Sciences and Technology, my liaison area, and it's something I hope to launch in spring 24. Because of these professional development opportunities, I feel much more equipped to consult with faculty on developing or adopting open materials, something I would have had to refer to my colleagues before. It was also fun to be a part of cohorts that shared the same enthusiasm for this work and get to know colleagues I hadn't had the chance to work with much in the past. It was also nice to be able to get to know others throughout the world doing this work and feel a part of a quickly expanding network. I feel like I am learning something new every day, which is exciting, while also strengthening my skill set. These opportunities have been hugely gratifying, and I look forward to continuing my learning surrounding open work.
I feel similarly to Carmen in that the principles of open education are what drew me to this movement and helped me find something real that I could find purpose and fulfillment in as part of my daily grind. I actually love rabble-rousy fight against, quote, the man, rebellion against the publishing industry, all those aspects. I find those to be some of the most attractive features. I do love a good underdog fight, but the opportunities of open education go so far beyond that. As a reference and instruction librarian, I do a lot of work in teaching around information literacy. As I'm sure many of us know, it can be a huge struggle to get students to engage with the research process and stop seeing it as a checklist of pick topic out of thin air, write or generate paper that makes sense to me, cherry pick sources that seem to agree with me, and hand in paper. Open pedagogy has really addressed that in many of my classes. When students can see their research on a Wikipedia page and see it get 50,000 views within a month, like one of our students did, that becomes hugely motivating for them. And many of our students are rabble rousers too. And once they're informed on it, they really dive into the idea of, quote, sticking it to big textbook by creating and sharing open information for students who don't have the opportunity to attend their classes or enroll in college. And that is kind of a slippery slope into doing things like recognizing and appreciating the scholarly conversation, thinking critically about the who, how, and why behind the sources that they're reading or citing. And most importantly, recognizing themselves as individuals who are capable of not just memorizing study questions or writing single-use research papers, but of really creating, compiling, and communicating knowledge to the world. My work with Open has at this point gone beyond the various training things I've completed, the Creative Commons certification, the Open Education Network certificate, the programs I've led like ACCFF and OER Leads, the Open and Affordable Showcase we conduct at my campus. And it's kind of gone past any of these specific projects, and it's now starting to blend into my daily instruction and research support. It's pretty rare for me to have a day where I don't talk about something related to OER, even in meetings and conversations that seem to not be related at all. It's really become a unifying thread that pops up throughout the fabric of my career and organizes all my disparate projects into a coherent pattern around creating better access to and awareness of information, which takes us to our takeaways.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Everyone needs something to help them stay engaged in their work. And if you're here for Open Ed 23, you probably are interested in or already engaged in open work. I find that it's something helpful or somewhat helpful to take stock of what I'm doing and how it's feeding me professionally. What is motivating about the work you're doing? How can you integrate what motivates you into other aspects of your job? If you have the capacity, how might you expand on your current work? If you're feeling burnout, how can you cut back a bit on what you're doing or reprioritize your duties so that you can maintain motivation? If you're doing work alone, would you enjoy having others join you in your work? Some find it more gratifying to work with others so that you have a support network and someone to bounce ideas off of. And collaboration and thinking big are what truly inspire me. And I'm grateful to have such a wonderful group of colleagues here at Penn State to work with. I think that part of the reason we have been able to achieve what we have with open work is my Penn State colleagues' willingness to include me, support me, and encourage me. So I believe that sharing your success stories is also critical. If I hadn't learned of my colleagues' achievements, I may not have engaged in the work I'm doing now, or at least come to the work much later. Also, I like that most of the time you're able to see fairly immediate results of your work in Open. Once I did the math on the estimated learning material savings for the students, I felt very proud of my work.
And I definitely agree with Carmen's points. I'll also add that it's important to fight for your own recognition and value in this work too. Neither Carmen nor I are in positions where open education was part of our original job descriptions. I've since had it partially added to mine, but it's not in our job titles, and it's not something that's been given space in our workloads except through our own juggling and management. When I work with faculty, I am adamant that they develop pacing for their open projects that will be sustainable for them. We do not need to switch all of their courses over to OER in one summer. And frankly, I don't think that's a good idea. I don't want to burn them out. And I really don't want to show administration that faculty are happy to do an insane amount of work for zero financial compensation and zero workload accommodation on a really unsustainable schedule. So I strongly recommend that faculty choose just one course or even just one module or chapter within a course to modify per semester, whatever feels sustainable for them, even if it means slower progress toward reduced cost for students. We know we'll get there eventually. We need to do that in a sustainable way. We know also that zero cost courses and programs are a very interesting, exciting element for university recruiting. They're interesting to new students. They can have significant impact on student success and retention simply by making sure everyone has access to the course materials. But if we're willing to burn ourselves out converting to OER as quickly and as cheaply as possible, we're doing ourselves a disservice, and we're damaging the people who will come after us into similar positions or into our institution and be expected to maintain the same pace because that's the culture. I think this is true not just for instructional faculty, but also for librarians and those of us who are supporting instructional faculty in various ways. So my recommendation is to work within your capacity, not just because it's good self-care, which I sometimes find hard to maintain, but instead because showing that our work should be valued and recognized and done sustainably, especially when it is producing measurable gains and impact for the university and for the students, is a movement in itself that's worth supporting too.
We also think it's important to recognize and reflect upon the privilege we have in being able to pursue open work and engage in several enriching professional development opportunities. In the times of ongoing uncertainty and almost seemingly constant upheaval in the higher education environment, we feel very fortunate to have had the encouragement, time, and funding to do this work. And we know that not everyone has this luxury. And we think that it's us that are already engaged in this work that we should be advocating for making open work a priority in higher education. We are the ones that will enact real and lasting change.
And that brings us to the end of our presentation. So thank you again for listening. And again, please feel free and encouraged to reach out to myself at ezn80@psu.edu and to Carmen at ccc143@psu.edu with any questions, comments, or perspectives that you'd like to share with us.